Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda. Today is Friday, which is 5 on Friday. So this was started by Suey at Suey's Book Banner, where, I'm sorry, the sun is all of a sudden coming out, so my lighting is weird. Suey at Suey's Book Banner, where each Friday we do themed list. I don't know if I know that Suey does recommendations. I don't always know if mine are recommendations. A themed list of 5 books. Suey and I do not coordinate our topics, so I don't know what she's doing this week. So you'll have to go check that out, and please do. So this week, oh boy, last week when I did 5 on Friday, I invited people to give suggestions, and Michael Clark very kindly gave me 2 suggestions, one of which will probably come at some point in the future. There's a logistic thing that requires someone entering my daughter's room to find books, and I'm not that brave yet, so that might be a little bit down the road. But one of the suggestions was books that I remember reading or that I loved as a young adult. Normally I do this explanation as part of my 5 minutes, but it needs more of an explanation because, oh God, please don't judge me. So when I was a young adult, middle school and high school, young adult literature as we know it now didn't really exist, as you will be able to tell by my books. Now, I had a lot of friends who were big science fiction, fantasy. Did I say fantasy? Oh my God. Science fiction fantasy readers. So I think for them that genre was always there for them. But for those of us, I was not. Yeah. So the other thing to know about me is that I was pretentious, which at my core, who I truly am, pretentious. So I'm going to start the timer for 5 minutes now, and I'm going to give you 5 books that I remember. This is the other thing. I don't remember a lot of the books that I read then because I did a lot of reading for school. And one of my books comes from that. But also, I was in a lot of activities. So I was very busy during my middle school and high school years. So I just didn't have the time to read as much. So I really had to think about what I remember reading. So anyway, don't judge me, please. We're going to talk about what I remember reading. Oh, Lord. Here we go. Sorry, timer's loading up here. 5 minutes. Okay. When I was in middle school, 13 years old, there was a book that was making the rounds. It was a classic because I am pretentious and I was reading classics because I was so smart, right? Yeah, that book was Lady Chatterley's Lover. That went around all of my friends, like the one copy. And I can't tell you anything about that book other than there were sex scenes in it. I don't think I understood the story when I was in it. I don't even think I understood the sex scenes, but we read it. That was a thing to say, well, I read Lady Chatterley's Lover. So yeah, 13, probably too young to be reading that, just saying. It's probably too young to be reading that particular D.H. Lawrence, or maybe any D.H. Lawrence, I don't know. But yes, I read Lady Chatterley's Lover. And I think that I started in a place of pretension, and then that led me to a different place. And because when I was like in middle school or high school is when a phenomenon started. Now, I just missed the Babysitter's Club as a kid. Like it came out a thing right when I was a little too old for it. But I was here for Sweet Valley High. And I read probably the first 50 of them during my youth. They would come out on like the 3rd Tuesday or something like that. So every month on like the 3rd Tuesday, I'd have my money and I would go across town to the mall where the B. Dalton was, because for some reason the Walden Books wouldn't have it right away. But I'd go across town to the mall that had B. Dalton to buy the latest Sweet Valley High. Those books, even just remembering what was in them, they were so toxic. Oh my God. This explains, only Gen X could come up with Sweet Valley High, because that is so twisted and so toxic. And yet I read them religiously until I was probably a junior in high school, and we will get to that. Now, Sweet Valley High actually was kind of tame in some ways, checking my time here. They did a lot of stuff, but there weren't a lot of details. And, I had already read Lady Chatterley's Lover when I was 13, right? Because, Anyway, so I remember reading and thinking it was okay. Like, my mother thought it was okay because it was Judy Blume. And my mother thought Judy Blume wrote kids' books. So when I came home reading Forever, she didn't think anything about it. And if you are not familiar, Forever is not a children's book. It is about a girl who has sex, and it's pretty tame as an adult looking back, but it was not tame when I was a kid. I was like, oh, whoa. I will also say I did read this like a year or so ago as part of like a banned book thing, and I was actually kind of disappointed in this book. It didn't live up. I mean, like once you get past the sex, it's like not that interesting. But anyway, so Forever by Judy Blume. Forever, however, was not the worst that I was reading. There was an author. The author is now deceased. Her name was Norma Klein. Checking my time here. Ugh. Checking my time. And Norma Klein wrote books for the young adult age, not young adult books. Now, I read a number of her books, and they were all spicy. But the one I remember reading the most was a book called Love is One of Those Choices, which was about two friends who take very different paths. And I can't remember what path the one friend took, but the other friend like slept with her teacher and then like got pregnant and they got married, and it was weird. And even then, that's when I was like, this seems wrong. This does not seem like a good thing. And it was written, if I remember it, because I've not read it since I was a teenager, it being kind of a romanticized thing. And I'm like, this seems wrong. So at this point, I'm like, what is going on with these books? I don't know. And I'm still reading them because, Sweet Valley High is going to come out. But then my junior year in high school, looking at my time, I took American Lit. Well, I had to take American Lit. Everyone did. And I read a book that brought me back to my true pretentious roots. The Scarlet Letter. I was the only person in my class, probably the only person in my grade, probably the only person in the world, let's face it, who loved this book. And I said that like reading in class was a little bit different. And yes, I read this in class, but then I read it another time that year for fun. And then I read it 2 times my senior year for fun. I don't think I read it more than like once or twice during college because I had other books to read. But I've read this more times than I can count. Back to my true pretentious roots, but as a teenager. So basically, 21 seconds, I did it. 21 seconds, I got through it. Important thing to know as a teenager, I was apparently reading far too much sex and I was pretentious otherwise. So yeah, don't judge me. Yeah. If you guys remember books like YA books when you were kids, like, first of all, my guess is then that you are of an age when YA was an actual genre, because it wasn't when I was. It was like, yeah. But if you are like of my age or maybe a little older, what were you reading as a teenager? Do you remember? Because I don't, other than these things. And I think I only remember them other than the Scarlet Letter, which is awesome. I only remember them because they scarred me. I don't know. Anyway, that's my 5 on Friday for this week. I will get to the other one that Michael suggested at some point in the future. I will tell you, it's like 5 books I enjoyed reading as a kid, which is actually an easy one for me to come up with books with. But the books, the actual physical books, are probably somewhere in my daughter's room, and that's just terrifying. So we'll see. That will be at some point in the future. Probably not next week, but at some point. But anyway, now you know what kind of nerdy, pretentious, apparently sex curious teenager I was. Thank you very much. Go check out Sue's channel, like, subscribe, all that jazz. Please come back. Please. I hope it didn't scare you off. Bye.